The porch light was off. The silence was heavy, and my belongings lay abandoned. I thought I knew my place in this world until I saw the note. It was supposed to be a quiet weekend away. I had been looking forward to reconnecting with an old friend, a few days to myself, away from the routine and the responsibilities at home. But as I pulled up to my house, everything felt off. The porch light that always greeted me in the evenings was off, and the silence was heavier than usual. I walked up to the door, expecting the familiar hum of home to welcome me, but instead there it was, my life scattered across the porch. My suitcase was lying awkwardly against the bushes, half unzipped, as though someone had carelessly tossed it there. The items I cherished, the things that had made my house feel like a home, were now abandoned. My night lamp, the one I had used for years, was lying face down on the ground. 2 framed photographs, one of my late husband and one of us when Luke was still in college, sat haphazardly beside it. They weren't just out of place. They were discarded like they no longer held any meaning. And then I saw it, a note folded and pinned under a magnet on the photo frame. It was written in Luke's handwriting. "Sorry, no room for you anymore." There were no explanations, no words of comfort, just that simple, cruel sentence. In an instant, I realized it wasn't just my belongings that had been taken from me. It was more than just being pushed out of my home. It was a deeper kind of loss. My place in their lives had been erased as if I never truly belonged there in the first place. I stood there for a long while, frozen, trying to make sense of what had just happened. I didn't cry. I couldn't. The shock was too raw, and for the first time I truly understood what it felt like to be completely, unmistakably replaced. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the mess of my belongings sprawled across the porch. The air around me felt thick still, as if the world had momentarily paused to watch me process the unthinkable. I had always believed that home was a place where no matter what you could find, comfort, warmth, and a sense of belonging. But now, standing at the threshold of the place that was once my sanctuary, I realized how quickly that sense of security could slip away. The driveway was eerily dark. The porch light that had always been on when I returned home from trips was off, casting a shadow over the place I had lived in for so long. It had always been my little ritual to walk up to the door, flip the switch, and feel the warmth of the light flood the entrance. But not today. Today, everything was wrong. My suitcase sat abandoned against a plastic bin, half open with the things I had packed for a brief escape scattered around. It felt like the edges of my life were exposed to the world, nothing tucked away anymore. The carefully folded clothes inside the suitcase, the toiletries that I'd packed in haste, everything felt out of place now. Even the small items like my favorite night lamp that had once been tucked safely in my bedroom were now discarded as if they no longer mattered. I couldn't move. My feet felt glued to the ground. I wanted to scream, to knock on the door, to demand answers, but the weight of the silence around me crushed those impulses. It was as if the house had turned its back on me. I bent down slowly to pick up the photos that had been tossed carelessly onto the porch, still in their frames, still in perfect condition. One was of Richard, my late husband, and me at a fundraiser. The other was a picture of me, Luke, and Richard back when Luke was in college. The memories felt like they belonged to someone else now. Those smiles in the photo seemed so far away, so impossible. And then beneath the photographs, I saw a folded piece of paper pinned to the photo frame. My heart stopped. The handwriting was unmistakable. It was Luke's. He had written the words that now seemed to echo in the hollow space between us. "Sorry, no room for you anymore. No warmth, no explanation." Just those words, cold and final. My hands trembled as I lifted the note from the frame. I turned it over, hoping for some kind of reason, some clarification. But there was nothing. No signature, no punctuation. Just a stark, devastating statement that shattered what was left of my sense of self in that house. I stood there clutching the note in my hand, my body frozen in place. A chill ran through me, but not from the cold night air. It was the kind of cold that comes when you realize that the people you love, the people you thought loved you, have turned their backs on you. I couldn't help but wonder how long had this been planned. Had it been happening slowly over time, and I had just chosen not to see it, or had this moment, this final act been calculated, planned down to the last detail, just waiting for me to step back through the door so they could cast me out? The words on the note kept repeating in my mind. No room for you anymore. No room, no space, no place for me in their lives. It wasn't just the house that had been taken away from me, it was my very place in their hearts. I didn't cry. Not yet. I couldn't. The betrayal cut deeper than tears. I slowly folded the note and tucked it into my pocket. With a heavy heart, I picked up my suitcase and the scattered photographs. Without looking back at the house at the home I thought I had, I walked away. My steps were slow, deliberate, as if the weight of everything that had just unfolded was trying to pull me back. But I didn't turn around. The silence that followed me felt louder than anything else, louder than any argument, louder than the fury I should have felt. It was the silence of being erased. The cold night air wrapped around me like a heavy blanket as I made my way to the small community park a few blocks from the house. I needed space away from the suffocating silence of my porch, away from the weight of the note in my pocket. I didn't have the energy to reach out to anyone, not yet, at least. I wasn't ready for any more questions, any more words. I just needed to be alone to let the reality of everything sink in. The park was quiet, save for the occasional rustle of leaves as the wind passed through the trees. The faint hum of distant traffic was a reminder that the world still spun, that everything hadn't come to a complete halt just because mine had. I found a bench beneath a cluster of oak trees and sat down, pulling my cardigan tighter around me as I stared out into the darkened space. The bench was hard, uncomfortable, but that discomfort felt familiar. I hadn't truly been comfortable in my own life for a long time, not since things started to shift, without me realizing it. The quiet of the night seemed to mirror the stillness inside me. It wasn't peaceful silence, though. It was the kind of silence that felt unsettling, like the calm before a storm that you know is coming, but can't yet see. I closed my eyes, allowing myself to sit there, not trying to force anything. Slowly, the events of the past few hours began to replay in my mind, each moment unraveling a little more, each memory taking on a different meaning now that I knew the truth. Luke, my own son, the one person I thought I could always count on. I had raised him, watched him grow into the man he was, a man who for a long time had made me proud. But something had changed, slowly at first, imperceptibly. The distance between us had crept in like a shadow, growing longer as the day went on. I remember the last few months, how Luke had stopped coming to me for advice, how he would rush through his visits offering polite but hollow smiles. Conversations with him had become strained, awkward. I had brushed it off, convincing myself that it was just the pressures of his work and life with Kayla. After all, he was engaged, starting his own family. I had no reason to believe anything was wrong. Or maybe I had just refused to see it. And then there was Kayla. I had always been kind to her, welcomed her into our family with open arms, even if she had always seemed just a little too polished, a little too perfect. She took charge of everything, especially around the house. She insisted on paying the utility bills, managing the repairs, handling the garden. At first, I appreciated the help, grateful that someone else was taking care of things I couldn't always keep up with. But looking back now, I see it more clearly. Kayla was taking control of my home, my space, and I didn't question it. She had woven herself into the fabric of my life so quietly, so subtly, that I had failed to notice how much she had replaced me. The signs were all there if I had only paid attention. Kayla's frequent comments about how much she loved the house, how she was planning for the future, how it would be better for everyone if we made a few changes here and there. At first, it all sounded like good intentions, like a young woman trying to be involved in her new family. But now it sounded like something else. It sounded like an agenda. I had ignored the little things, the way Kayla would make decisions without consulting me, the way Luke had started pulling away, avoiding the subject of the house. I remember how he'd changed the topic whenever I asked him about our plans for the future, how he'd become defensive when I mentioned things that needed to be taken care of. Those subtle shifts, those moments where the connection between us felt strained, now screamed at me in hindsight. But I never saw it coming, never truly grasped what was happening until it was too late. I had been too busy trying to hold everything together, trying to keep the peace, trying to be the mother that Luke needed. But in doing so, I had missed the bigger picture. They had already begun the process of replacing me. As I sat there on the bench, the weight of this realization settled over me like a heavy cloud. I felt lost, like a part of me had been torn away, something that had been my identity for so long. My home, my family, my place in their lives, everything I had built, everything I had sacrificed had been quietly erased. The night felt colder now, not because of the temperature, but because of the hollow feeling inside me. I looked up at the dark sky, searching for something to ground me. It was then that I realized I had to let go, not just of the house, not just of the past, but of the idea that I could control everything. I couldn't change what had been done, but I could choose how to move forward. I stood up from the bench, my legs a little shaky, and I began to walk. The quiet of the park surrounded me, but this time I didn't feel so alone. The first step toward reclaiming my life had been taken, and somehow, in that small moment of clarity, I felt the first glimmer of hope. The morning after my restless night in the park, I woke up with a dull ache in my chest, but something inside me had shifted. I couldn't just sit around anymore trying to piece together the fragments of what had happened. I needed to do something. I needed answers, and I needed to find them for myself, not wait for Luke or Kayla to offer any. I found myself walking aimlessly through the neighborhood, my feet carrying me without any real direction. The familiar streets seemed unfamiliar now. The houses once full of memories and shared history now felt like reminders of everything I had lost. I walked past the rows of houses that had always been there, but then something caught my eye. A newly built home, a modern, sleek house, with wide windows and polished railings that didn't quite belong in this part of the neighborhood. It stood like a monument to change, a symbol of something new that didn't fit with the old, familiar structures around it. And then I saw them. Through the sheer curtains of the corner unit, I could make out two figures sitting at the dining table, Luke and Kayla. My heart skipped a beat. They were there together discussing something. From where I stood, I couldn't hear their conversation, but it didn't matter. Their body language told me everything I needed to know. Kayla was leaning forward, flipping through a folder, her voice full of excitement as she pointed to something. Luke was looking down at his mug, his eyes not meeting hers, but his shoulders were slumped the same way they had been when he was a teenager avoiding conflict. He nodded occasionally, but his expression was distant, distracted. Kayla laughed, a sound that to me felt hollow, like it was meant to cover something darker beneath the surface. Luke's eyes drifted toward the window, and for a split second I thought he saw me standing there. But there was no reaction. He didn't even blink. He simply turned away, as if I didn't matter anymore. It hit me like a wave, that sharp realization, the one I had been avoiding for so long. They had been planning this all along. This wasn't some momentary lapse in judgment, some fleeting idea. This was a calculated decision, and I had been the last to know. They had been pushing me out of their lives little by little while I was none the wiser. The pieces began to fall into place. I had been too blind to see it before, too trusting of them both. I had made excuses, telling myself that Luke was just busy with his own life, that Kayla was just trying to be helpful. But now, standing there watching them through the window, it was clear. They had been systematically replacing me quietly, steadily, while I kept trying to hold on to a family that no longer existed the way I had believed it did. As I walked away from the house, my mind was swirling with thoughts I hadn't allowed myself to consider before. The utility bills that Kayla had taken over, how could I have ignored that? The way Luke had always avoided talking about the house, pushing aside any discussions about its future. How had I missed all the signs? It wasn't just the bills or the paperwork. It was the little things, the hesitations in Luke's voice, when I asked about plans, the way Kayla would make decisions without consulting me, the way they both had shut me out of conversations that once included me. These weren't just coincidences. They were deliberate actions, part of a larger plan to remove me from the equation entirely. I had been so focused on trying to be the mother they needed, trying to keep everything together, that I failed to see what was right in front of me. I had trusted them both, trusted Luke to be my son, trusted Kayla to be part of the family, and in doing so, I had ignored the quiet shifts happening behind the scenes. But now, standing in the stillness of the street, the truth was undeniable. The house wasn't just a home anymore. It was a battleground, and I had been blind to the war being waged inside it. The war to erase me, to replace me, and I had been too trusting to even notice. But that was over now. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. I needed to face the truth no matter how painful it was. And I needed to do it on my own terms. I needed answers. As the days passed after my unsettling discovery, the feeling of being slowly erased from my own life grew heavier. It wasn't just the house anymore. It was everything. The realization that Luke and Kayla had been planning to push me out in such a calculated way made me feel more vulnerable than ever. But I wasn't about to let them get away with this. I needed clarity, and I needed help. That's when I decided to reach out to Carla. She had been a colleague of mine years ago, a sharp, no-nonsense woman who always seemed to know exactly what was going on, even when everyone else was too blinded by their own lives. I hadn't spoken to her in a while, but I knew she could be trusted, and I knew she would tell me the truth, no matter how hard it might be to hear. We met at a local cafe, a cozy little place, where we used to meet for coffee during our working days. Carla greeted me with a warm smile, but the moment she saw the look in my eyes, her expression shifted. It was as if she already knew I was carrying a weight I couldn't bear alone. We sat down, and after exchanging pleasantries, I told her everything: the note, the house, the feeling of being pushed out. As I spoke, Carla listened quietly, nodding as if she understood every word. Once I finished, she took a deep breath and leaned in slightly, her voice dropping to a more serious tone. "You know, I ran into Kayla a few days ago." Carla began at a property mixer. She was talking about moving soon. Apparently, she and Luke were considering selling the house. My stomach dropped. I hadn't expected to hear that, but somehow it didn't surprise me. I had always known that Kayla had ambitions, but I never imagined she would do something like this, take control of everything, even my home. "She mentioned it in passing," Carla continued, "but you know Kayla, always so confident about her plans. The way she talked, it sounded like the house was already a done deal. She didn't even seem to hesitate." I sat there absorbing the information. It wasn't just about selling the house. It was about replacing me, erasing me from it entirely, like I had never been part of the family. Carla could see the confusion and pain written on my face, and she gently placed a hand on mine. "Sarah, I hate to say this, but something doesn't sit right with me. You need to check the ownership of the house. If they're planning to sell, you need to know exactly where you stand legally." Her words struck a chord deep within me. I had avoided confronting the reality of what they had done too, afraid to face it head on. But Carla was right. I had to act. I left the cafe that afternoon with a sense of urgency I hadn't felt in days. I needed to check the records, the bills, the ownership of the house. I couldn't let Kayla and Luke get away with what they were doing. That evening, I sat down at my old desk, the one that had once been filled with papers for work, now gathering dust. I pulled out the latest utility bills that I had brought home and started going through them one by one. My heart sank as I flipped through the papers. My name was nowhere to be found. It wasn't just the bills. I couldn't find my name on anything. Kayla's name was everywhere, on the water bill, the electricity bill, the insurance forms. I had been wiped clean from everything that once had my name on it. I stood up, feeling a wave of dizziness wash over me. How had this happened? How had they managed to slip past me, replacing me so quietly without a word of explanation? I couldn't ignore the sinking feeling in my gut any longer. They had started the legal process quietly, deliberately. They had been laying the groundwork for this moment all along, and I had been too blinded by my trust in them to see it. Carla was right. I needed to act. This wasn't just a betrayal, it was a theft, and I would fight to reclaim what was mine. I couldn't sit around anymore waiting for someone else to make a move. Kayla and Luke had taken the first step, and now it was time for me to take mine. I needed legal guidance, and I needed it fast. It wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about my future, my dignity, and my place in this world. The betrayal was too deep for me to ignore. I reached out to Emma, an attorney I had worked with years ago, someone I trusted. She specialized in family law and had a reputation for being sharp and straightforward. I hadn't been in touch with her for some time, but when it came to this, I knew she was the right person to turn to. We met in her office, a place that smelled faintly of old books and fresh coffee. Emma greeted me warmly, but I could see the concern in her eyes the moment I explained the situation. She listened carefully as I recounted everything what had happened with Luke and Kayla, the discovery of the bills, the sudden shift in my life. When I finished, Emma sat back in her chair, her expression thoughtful. "You've been blindsided, Sarah. This isn't just about the house. It's about what they're trying to take from you. Your rights, your identity within the family, your autonomy. They've attempted to erase all of that without your consent, and that's not something they can get away with." I nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. Finally, someone was telling me that I wasn't imagining things, that this wasn't just a bad situation, it was a legal issue. Emma went over my rights, step by step explaining the options I had. "The house is legally yours, Sarah. The paperwork, the deeds, everything you've built here, it's yours. What they're trying to do is illegal, and we can stop it. We can file a cease and desist letter, and that will immediately halt any attempts to sell or transfer ownership of the house." The words cease and desist rang through my mind like a lifeline. For the first time in days, I felt like I had control. Emma didn't stop there. She walked me through the entire process. We would file the letter, and in addition, she advised placing legal alerts on the property to prevent any further attempts to manipulate or fraudulently change the ownership. "It's not going to be easy," Emma warned, "but you're not alone in this. We have the law on our side." I took a deep breath. The weight of the situation still felt heavy, but for the first time in a long time, I felt the sting of the betrayal transform into something else, a quiet resolve. I wasn't just going to stand by and let them erase me. I was going to fight back with every tool I had. The next day, with Emma's guidance, we crafted a formal cease and desist letter addressed to Luke and Kayla. The language was firm and unequivocal, making it clear that any attempts to transfer the house's ownership or sell it without my consent would be illegal. The letter was not only a warning, it was a declaration that I was taking back control. It would go out by courier sealed and official, and I would be copied on every document. I could almost picture Luke's face when he received it. Would he be surprised? Would he be angry I didn't know? But I didn't care anymore. The truth was on my side, and that was all that mattered. With the cease and desist in motion, Emma also helped place legal alerts on the property. Any attempts to refinance or sell it without my knowledge would now trigger an alert with the county clerk's office. It was like putting a lock on a door that had been left wide open. I wasn't taking any chances. As I left Emma's office that day, a sense of determination settled in my chest. I had taken the first step. I had reclaimed some of my power, and now it was up to Luke and Kayla to reckon with the consequences of their actions. For the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe again. I wasn't going to let them push me out. Not now, not ever. This was my home, my legacy, and I wasn't going down without a fight. A few days after the cease and desist letter was sent, Luke showed up at my door. It was early evening, the sun still hanging low in the sky, casting long shadows on the sidewalk, as he stood there, hands nervously stuffed into his pockets. He looked different, more worn than I remembered, as if the weight of everything had finally begun to take its toll. For a moment, I hesitated. I could feel the anger rising in me, the flood of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. But I held it back. I wanted to hear him out. I wanted to understand, even though I had already made up my mind about what had happened. "Mom, Luke," began, his voice strained. "Can we talk?" I stepped aside to let him in, but my heart wasn't in the motion. He had no idea how hard this was, how much it hurt to open that door to let him back in after everything that had happened. He sat on the couch, and I remained standing, my arms crossed, watching him carefully. He looked tired, like he hadn't been sleeping well, like the weight of what had transpired was starting to sink in. I don't know how things got this far, Mom," he said, looking down at his hands. I didn't know. I didn't realize how much it had escalated until it was too late. Kayla was the one pushing for all the changes, for everything. She said we needed to take control of the house. She thought it was the best thing for all of us, and I just didn't want to fight her. His words hung in the air, heavy with the same excuses I had heard 100 times over the years. I didn't realize I didn't know I didn't want to fight. He was trying to explain away his passivity, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I took a slow breath and sat down across from him, the distance between us almost palpable. "Luke," I said softly, but my voice carried the weight of the truth. "I'm not angry with Kayla, not really. I'm angry with you." He looked up at me, his eyes wide, as though he hadn't expected me to say that. But it wasn't anger, not the kind that he had probably anticipated. It was something deeper, more disappointing. I had raised him to be strong, to stand up for what was right, to be a man of his word. But instead, I had watched him shrink away from the tough decisions, letting someone else, someone who wasn't even part of this family, dictate the direction of our lives. "You knew exactly what was happening, Luke," I continued. "You chose silence. You chose to let Kayla make all the decisions, even if it meant pushing me out. And you didn't stop it. You didn't say anything when you saw how it was affecting me. That wasn't a mistake. That was a choice." He flinched, the truth stinging him more than any angry words I could have spoken. But I couldn't stop. I needed him to understand. "I'm not asking for an apology," I said. "I'm asking you to face what you've done. You've let Kayla manipulate you, and now she's trying to manipulate everything else. The house, the future, our family. You don't even see it, do you?" Luke's face flushed a mix of shame and confusion. Kayla didn't mean for it to go this far. She just thought we needed to move on, start fresh. Move on. You think this is about moving on. This isn't about starting fresh, Luke. This is about erasing me from your lives. And you stood by and let it happen. I could see the realization hit him, but it wasn't the realization I wanted. It was the painful understanding that I was right. He didn't want to fight. Kayla didn't want to confront the uncomfortable truth that his fiancé had overstepped, had taken control of something that should have been his responsibility. I stood up, my patience wearing thin. Kayla isn't the only one responsible here, Luke. You've let her call the shots, and now you both think you can just sweep me aside, but I'm not going anywhere. The door slammed shut behind him as he left. His shoulders slumped, the weight of our conversation hanging in the air. I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel like I'd won. All I felt was the cold, harsh reality of what had happened. That night, as I sat alone in my living room, my mind raced. The more I thought about Kayla's role in this, the more disgusted I became. She wasn't just a bystander. She wasn't just trying to help. Kayla was manipulating the situation, pulling the strings, positioning herself as the center of Luke's world, pushing me out of it without even a second thought. She wanted the house, the life, the family, but only on her terms. The more I reflected on it, the clearer it became she had been playing me from the start. And Luke, my own son, had let her. But now it didn't matter. I wasn't going to let them manipulate me anymore. I had already taken steps to protect my home, and I wasn't going to stop. No matter how much they tried to cover it up, I knew the truth. And the truth was, I was not a victim in this story. I was the one who would rise above it. The days following my confrontation with Luke felt like they stretched on endlessly, each one more suffocating than the last. The weight of everything, my son's betrayal, Kayla's manipulation, the erosion of everything I once knew, felt like a constant pressure on my chest. But as much as I struggled with the hurt, I knew I had a decision to make. I couldn't keep living like this, with the uncertainty of my place in my own family, in my own home. I had always thought the house was everything to me, but now standing in its shadow, I realized that it wasn't the house that mattered. It was the life inside it, the life I had built with my husband, and the family we had created. And that life had been taken from me quietly, without my consent, so I made a choice. I would sell the house, but not for the reasons they thought. I wouldn't sell it to move on or to escape. No, I would sell it to make sure something good came out of this, something that could help other women like me, who had been pushed aside, discarded, erased. With the sale of the house, I decided to start a foundation. It would be a foundation for women who had faced manipulation, who had been torn down by the people they loved, who had been made to feel invisible. I wanted to make sure that women like me, who had been treated as if they didn't matter, had a place to turn. A place where they could reclaim their lives and their power, just as I was trying to do now. I met with lawyers, financial advisors, and even old friends who could help. It wasn't easy. There were so many details to sort out, so many hurdles to clear. But for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was doing something that mattered. I was taking control not just of my life, but of my future. The foundation would be my legacy, my way of making sure that my pain, my story, could help someone else. And when the house finally sold, the proceeds went straight into setting up the foundation. It wasn't just a business venture or a charity. It was personal. It was everything I had lived for, the love I had poured into the house, the family I had hoped would always be there. Now it would be redirected into something bigger, something more meaningful. The day I signed the final papers, I felt a strange sense of peace. The house was no longer mine, but the work I had started would be. I stood in the empty house, for the last time, the rooms hollow and quiet, but in my heart, I knew that I had made the right decision. I wasn't leaving behind my life. I was creating a new one. Luke and Kayla's reaction came a few days later when they finally realized what I had done. I had expected their anger, their disbelief, but nothing could have prepared me for the shock on their faces when they learned I had sold the house and used the money to create something that would help others. Luke called me the night he found out. His voice was low, tight with confusion and frustration. "Mom, what did you do? Why would you sell the house?" I could hear Kayla's voice in the background, probably trying to calm him down. "I did what I needed to do, Luke. I'm not your mother anymore. I'm a woman and I have a life to live," I said, my voice steady, despite the surge of emotions inside me. "And I'm not going to let you or Kayla decide what happens to me. The house is gone, but I found something better." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. I didn't need to say anything else. The realization was hitting them both, the realization that they no longer had control over me. Kayla, always the strategist, called the next day. Her voice was cold, laced with tension. "You didn't have to go this far, Sarah. This isn't necessary." "Necessary," I echoed. "This wasn't about you or Luke anymore, Kayla. This is about me, and you both underestimated me. I'm not going to sit back and let you erase me from my own life. The foundation I've created will do more good than you ever could have imagined." There was no response after that, no apology, no plea. The silence spoke volumes. For the first time in a long while, I felt in control. I wasn't just standing up for myself, I was standing tall. And when the phone call ended and the silence settled in, it was a different kind of silence than before. It wasn't the quiet of being ignored or erased. It was the silence of victory, the quiet that comes when you realize that you've taken back your life. After the sale of the house and the official closing of that chapter in my life, I found myself standing at a new crossroads. The house, the foundation, my relationship with Luke and Kayla, it was all behind me now. And though it had been an overwhelming journey, I was finally free. I moved into a small apartment tucked away in a quiet corner of the city. It wasn't much, but it was mine. The walls weren't lined with years of memories, and the floorboards didn't creak with the weight of my past. There was peace here, a stillness I hadn't realized I craved so desperately. The simplicity of it felt like a breath of fresh air, like I was stepping into a new life, unburdened by the emotional baggage I had been carrying for so long. The apartment was modest, just a one-bedroom with soft beige walls and a small kitchen where the sunlight seemed to pour in every morning. I'd chosen it for its simplicity, its quietness, and because it felt like a fresh start. There was no history here, no expectations, just the space to rebuild. And rebuild I did. The first few days were surreal, almost dreamlike. For the first time in ages, I didn't feel the need to keep up appearances, to worry about what others thought, to put on a brave face for people who had never really seen me. I could finally let go. The mornings became my favorite part of the day. I would wake up to the soft rays of sunlight filtering through the windows, casting long shadows across the room. There was something grounding about the morning routine, brewing my coffee, sitting at the small table by the window, listening to the hum of the city outside. It was a simple joy, but it filled me with a deep sense of calm that I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't rushing to meet anyone's demands, to fix anyone's problems. I was just being. And in that being, I began to rediscover myself. In the quiet moments, I found space to reflect on my journey. The pain of the betrayal still lingered, but it didn't consume me. I was no longer living in the shadow of the house or the weight of the life I had tried so hard to maintain. I was free. Free to make choices, free to explore who I really was, outside of the roles I had played for so long. Mother, wife, daughter. Now I was just Sarah, and that was enough. As time passed, I started to focus more on my foundation. Helping women who had experienced the same kind of manipulation and neglect I had was not just a way to channel my anger or frustration, it became my new purpose. Every woman I helped reminded me of my own strength. Every letter, every message of gratitude I received fueled my resolve to keep going. I wasn't just helping them, I was helping myself too. By sharing my story, by providing a space for women to reclaim their lives, I was healing. The foundation began to grow slowly at first. Donations were modest, but they were steady. The word started to spread, and soon I was connected with other women who shared their stories with me. We had weekly meetings, support groups, and even legal resources to help those who needed it. The feeling of knowing that I was making a difference, that I was offering hope to someone who had felt as lost and discarded as I once had, gave my life new meaning. It gave me the sense of connection I had been craving, a bond with others who truly understood the pain of being silenced, of being erased. My mornings, once filled with uncertainty, were now filled with purpose. I woke up with a sense of direction, knowing that I was using my experience to lift others up. I would go for walks in the park, visit the local library, or sit in the cafe down the street writing letters or planning events for the foundation. There was a quiet satisfaction in these small, simple actions. I was building a life from the ground up, and every step forward, no matter how small, was a victory. I still had moments of reflection, moments when the past crept back in, when I missed the idea of family or wished things had turned out differently. But those moments were fleeting. I had learned to let them go, to embrace the life I was building now. I was no longer waiting for permission to live. I was living on my own terms. In this new chapter, I found peace, true peace, the kind that comes from reclaiming your life, your story, your power, the kind that comes from letting go of the past and stepping into the future with nothing but hope and determination ahead of you. and I knew in that quiet moment that I was ready for whatever came next. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, I began to realize something that had taken me far too long to understand. Healing is not loud. It's not about dramatic moments or grand gestures. It's quiet. It's steady. It's a gradual unfolding of strength, a process that takes time and patience. I had expected my healing to come in waves, in bursts of anger, or moments of clarity that would wash over me all at once. But that wasn't how it worked. Healing came in the small, everyday moments. It came in the silence of my new apartment, the calm of my morning routine. It came in the letters I wrote for the foundation, the small victories, when I saw someone else reclaiming their life, just as I had done. Every time I stood up for myself, every time I spoke my truth, I was healing a little bit more. Each step forward, however small, was a reminder that I was taking back control. I had spent so much of my life trying to live for others, trying to be the perfect mother, the perfect wife, the perfect daughter. I had let my identity be shaped by the expectations of those around me. But now, in this new chapter of my life, I chose to center my world around my own strength and clarity. I wasn't going to let Luke and Kayla's actions define my future. They had tried to erase me, to make me invisible, but I wasn't going to let them succeed. In choosing myself, I had found something I had been searching for my entire life: peace. Not the peace that comes from avoiding conflict, but the kind that comes from knowing who you are, standing firm in your own truth and no longer letting the opinions of others dictate your worth. I had found autonomy, the freedom to live on my own terms, without fear or hesitation. Most importantly, I had found purpose. Through the foundation, through the women I helped, I realized that my journey wasn't just about me anymore. It was about making sure that no one else had to feel as invisible as I had. It was about giving others the tools to reclaim their own lives just as I had done. The past, with all its pain and betrayal, no longer held me back. It had shaped me, yes, but it did not define me. I had built something better for myself, something that was mine, something that no one could take away. And in that quiet space, in the stillness of my new life, I found something I had never known before: freedom. Freedom to be me, to be Sarah, and that was more than enough. The journey Sarah goes through is a profound reminder that we are often defined by the people around us, sometimes to our own detriment. We pour our hearts into our families, our roles and our identities, only to realize one day that we've been erased, quietly pushed aside. Sarah's story teaches us that we cannot allow others' decisions, their betrayals, or their manipulation to define who we are. We live in a world that often teaches us to prioritize others' needs above our own, to be selfless to the point of losing ourselves in the process. But the truth is, true strength comes from reclaiming your identity, your life, your autonomy. The quiet healing that Sarah experiences after the sale of the house is a testament to the power of embracing your own truth. It's not about revenge or retaliation, but about choosing yourself and your peace. Our society often overlooks the importance of emotional well-being and independence, especially for women. We're conditioned to believe that sacrifice is noble, that putting others before us is a virtue. But the story of Sarah is a powerful reminder: in order to live fully, we must first be whole within ourselves. We must make space for our own voice, our own needs, and our own healing. Only then can we truly help others without losing ourselves in the process. If you've ever felt erased, silenced, or overlooked, remember that you have the power to reclaim your life. Your past does not define your future unless you let it. Don't wait for others to give you permission to live your truth. I invite you to share your thoughts. Have you ever experienced a moment of quiet healing when you took back control of your life? Let's talk about it in the comments below.